In today's episode, we're going to show you different ways that we like to store, preserve, and use rosemary in our household. So let's get cooking and make ourselves some rosemary stuff. So this time of year, rosemary is really exploding, which means it has all these tender growing points. They're perfect for cooking. And if you were to not harvest these and leave these will become woody over time. And that way your rosemary bush just expands and expands. So that's where you, as a gardener, homesteader, home cook, food fanatic, are responsible for keeping this bush in check. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to sort of trim it back quite a lot, not all of it. And then we're going to use both the woody parts and the fresh parts. Let's fill up one of these crates. I'm going to start cutting it back down below towards the center of the bush. Philippe, have you seen my phone?
Every day.
It's not here either. Yes. Yes, maybe I should drink a little less. All joking aside though, rosemary is really a special plant because in the olden days it was thought that it was good for many things, one of which was to never forget or to remember. The ancient Greeks actually wore this as a crown during exams, and people used to give this to loved ones when they would go on a long journey as a symbol that they wouldn't forget about them. So the first thing we're going to discuss is how to properly dry rosemary. That of course is the simplest technique you can use at home to preserve this beautiful herb. And the aim of all drying is always to preserve as much aromatics as you can. That's why we're going to discuss two different methods today. The first one is the longest one and also yields the best result. This is called cold drying. And you simply do this by bundling about 4 to 5 twigs together. Tie those together with a little elastic band, as such. You then hang those in a cool and dark space, and 7 days later this is completely dried out and ready to store. Second technique we're using today is using the dehydrator. Now I like using the dehydrator because I have a lot of surface area on which I can lay it all out evenly, meaning that it will dry very fast and evenly, which is nice, so you have a little bit more control. The downside though is that because you're doing it at 30 degrees Celsius or 86 Fahrenheit, the temperature is slightly higher than the cold method, meaning that you're losing some of that aromatics. So what we're going to do here with these beautiful large twigs is we're going to separate the thinner woody parts and the tender parts, and those we're going to dehydrate, and then the woodier parts at the bottom we're actually going to use for some meat skewers. So let's get chopping. Now just separate these from the stalks. Then we're going to put this in a jar, and you can label this rosemary. You can use this in cooking or you can use this for tea making. Nothing better than having your own herbs in your pantry. That leaves us with these bushy mamas. So what are we going to do here? We're going to use the woody parts. We're not going to throw these away. We're going to break these off evenly and create some zero waste meat skewers. So that's going to be super fun. You don't need to buy yourself any satay sticks, as we call them in Dutch. You can just grow yourself a rosemary bush and make yourself some meat skewers. If you're loving this rosemary content and you're growing it or want to start growing it, go to our website because we have a free growing guide up as a free resource that tells you everything on how to grow rosemary in hot and cold climates. Check it out. All right, so here they are. We're gonna make them as long as possible. So I'm gonna top off the crown and then we're gonna have our satay sticks. You can also use these fresh, and if you wanna use them fresh, then you can leave this bit on. We're gonna take that off now because we're gonna dehydrate them to use them later. But if you're gonna use them fresh, submerge them in water for 30 minutes before using so that it doesn't catch fire on the grill. Satay sticks. Last step, dehydration. That way we can store them. Myself some sticks. These are looking good. If you're a bit squeamish, you can give them a little scrub. I think they're absolutely fine like this. They store in an airtight container and you can store them until forever. Just make sure to soak them for 30 minutes before using. I think it's the third time I'm saying this. Now we have 3 piles left. These are the tops of the satay sticks, of the skewers. So these are still going to be used for something edible. Then we have this pile. This is all of the leftover from me stripping the stick. So this is no longer really suitable for eating because there's lots of little pieces of bark in there and stuff. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to make delicious little air fresheners for your drawers to put them in between your clothes. So we're going to put this in a dehydrator as well. We're going to mark these trays so that we know that this is the specific one that isn't edible. And we're going to cover one of the bottom trays with aluminium foil and have that be the bottom tray in the entire dehydrator, because then anything that falls through these little mesh, what are they called, Philippe? Trays. Can then be harvested by us and reused. So we're gonna spread these out in a thin layer onto more of these trays. Let's harness the beautiful fragrant power of rosemary and turn it into some rosemary salt and rosemary sugar. You will need 2 clean jars of about 375 ml or 12.2 ounces each with lids, one filled with unrefined sugar and the other one with sea salt. 2 baking trays, a strong blender, a spatula, a funnel, and either a dehydrator or you could just air dry. Step number 1, we're going to introduce the salt into the blender. Next up, we're going to need 3 bushels of rosemary. All the little fresh leaves. Get all those tender bits in there. Blend away. I'm going to start on slow. Done. Up. Now we repeat the same process with the sugar. This will look less smooth as the unrefined cane sugar is a little bit wet. Once done, place it into a baking tray and spread it out evenly. Dry both of these at 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit in a dehydrator for 24 hours. Or if you're not using a dehydrator, you could now air dry this for 7 days in a dry, cool space with a slight ventilation. All right, these are done. So what happens is that they dry out, but they do sort of make a little crust on top. So the next thing up is we're going to loosen it up in this blender, and then we're going to pop them in their jars and label them. If kept in an airtight container, these will store for up to a year. Now this is definitely my favorite way to preserve the aromatic power of rosemary because it is combining two of my favorite things, which is butter and rosemary. Let's make some Herby Butter Bombs. Portioning them to have about 2 tablespoons, 2 heaped tablespoons of this butter available. So if you got a bit of a thicker roll, you have to slice a little thinner, of course. Makes me want to eat one of these things. Just shove it in your mouth. Place these in so that they're not going to be squeezed. Even handen wassen. Just gotta wash my hands. All right, so these Herby Butter Bombs are delicious. They stay well in the freezer for 4 months. So I'm gonna pop them in there and I'm gonna take them out as I need them. Of course, you could also just save this in the fridge as an entire roll and cut as you go, but that only stays good for a few weeks. Next up, rosemary infused cleaning vinegar. In a 1 liter or 33.8 fluid ounce sterile bottle, stuff as much fresh rosemary twigs as possible. Then cover with 750 ml or 25.3 fluid ounces of distilled vinegar. Place the bottle in a cool, dark space for about 2 weeks and occasionally shake the bottle. Then mix 2/3 of the strained vinegar with 1/3 of water into a spray bottle and you will have yourself a great bathroom and window cleaning liquid. It is especially good for water stains on mirrors and windows. So if you ever wondered why Philippe is bald and I have this beautiful head of hair, it's clearly because I'm using rosemary water rinse and he stopped doing that when he was 19. No, all joking aside, rosemary has actually shown to improve hair growth, and this is something that we're going to make that you can use two ways, because you could either drink this as a tea when it's still hot, or you could let it cool down and make your very own hair rinse, which improves hair growth. And if you add a little bit of vinegar, you're going to level out the pH of your scalp, even improving the conditions against dandruff and stuff. So lots of wins here. The way I go about this is I have 750 ml of water in the flask in which I'm going to keep the rinse. So this is just a good way to measure how much water you're going to need. We're going to introduce that into a pot. This we're going to bring up to a boil, and as soon as it's boiling we're going to turn off the heat, and then we're going to introduce the rosemary sprigs. And then we're going to let that sit and cool down completely. Strain it, add a bit of vinegar, pop it into our container. And then this keeps in the fridge and you can use this 2 to 3 times a week. Alright folks, and that was it for today's episode. If you know something else fun and delicious to do with rosemary, drop it in the comments below. If you want to keep watching, check out one of these 2 videos. And of course, don't forget, if you like our content, you can support us by hitting that subscribe button and giving us a thumbs up. See you on the next one. The Farming Chefs, peace out.